Welcome back everybody to our weekly Moto news show, where this week we'll take a look at some astounding new deals from KTM, along with why they're offering such massive discounts. Then there's a new 50th anniversary edition of the mighty Honda Goldwing that I think's probably going to either float your boat or not, plus a great new deal from Cardo, an idiot-proof patent from Honda, a flashy new special edition of Royal Enfield's super cool Shotgun 650, and then we'll casually round off with what could now become the world's fastest production motorcycle. So first up, this week we got a press release from KTM announcing some pretty substantial discounts on pretty much all of their new bikes, such as, the 125 to 790 Dukes with discounts ranging from 800 quid up to 1200 quid. Then you've got the 1390 Super Duke R and Evo, both of which get a whopping £2,700 off. And then from the sports touring lineup, well, you can save £2,100 on an 890 SMT and £3,100 on last year's 1290 Super Duke GT. Then if you take a look at the adventure lineup from the previous year model 390 up to the big capacity stuff like the 1290 Super Adventure R, you've got discounts ranging from $1,300 to $2,600. And on top of that, pretty much all of their dirt bike lineup now comes with between £1,000 and £2,000 off. Perhaps most interestingly though was that they've announced what they call a price realignment, which I think is like KTM speak for we overpriced it in the first place, on the 990 Duke, which was, in my opinion, way too expensive when they brought it out last year at £12,999. It was just such a big step up on the previous generation 890 Duke. And so yeah, this looks pretty good to me actually. The new price of £10,999 seems much more appropriate and also makes it look really quite good versus some of the competition. Soon after, similar news came from Husqvarna, owned by the same group as KTM of course, with the Svartpillen and Vitpillen prices slashed between £900 and £1,500. Nordens, well, you can get either £1,600 or £1,700 off those, and there are again similar savings to the KTM lineup for their Enduro and motocross bikes. On top of that, they announced the price for their new 2025 Vitpillen 801, and this one's going to be available for £9,999, which I think is, probably less than most people were anticipating. So look, on the face of it, it probably looks like a pretty great time to pick up a brand new KTM. But thing is, unless you've been living under a rock for the past year or two, you'll probably know that they've been going through some pretty serious financial difficulties recently, which have kind of forced their hand to introduce all these significant and widespread price reductions. Now, I won't go into the full details right now because it's probably there's enough there for an entire separate video, although maybe let me know in the comments if you want to see a comprehensive timeline of the sort of difficulties that KTM are going through. But in the meantime, what I would say is this. There's a hearing in just over a couple of weeks at the end of February in which they're going to have all of their restructuring and financial plans signed off by their many creditors. And that, assuming it gets signed off, would allow them to move forward as a business and avoid being declared bankrupt effectively, albeit with some fairly significant changes. Thing is though, I checked in on these discounts and I believe, from speaking to their press team that there's no hard date on when they're going to finish, but it seems like they're going to be around for a little while. And so maybe it's still worth holding on for a couple of weeks to make sure you don't end up spending what is still, a lot of money on a bike, only for KTM to go under and not be able to get parts or software updates or servicing or repairs. Personally though, I really hope KTM managed to find a way forward. I hope it does get signed off in some form. And then yes, potentially it does look like it could be a good time to grab yourself an absolute bargain if you've been eyeing up one of these KTMs anyway. And plus, hopefully, it'll help KTM to get through this backlog of bikes that they've amassed over the past few years, which is believed to be at, around 250,000. Moving on though to something a little bit more joyous, and we've got an announcement from Honda with the unveiling of their 50th anniversary edition for the legendary Goldwing Tourer. Now this is one of my favorite bikes that I've been able to borrow over the past few years, with ridiculous levels of refinement and comfort, and also a bit of an X factor that just make it very hard not to love. New for 2025 though, we've got some special retro-inspired paint jobs to celebrate this model's history, as well as a few technical tweaks while they had the chance to update it. They also included a really nice pack of images of all the different models through the years of different Goldwings, and I did enjoy flicking through those and seeing how it's evolved, you know, from a flat 4 to a flat 6 to getting more and more bodywork and even some signature features being introduced like the airbag. For these new 2025 bikes though, well, the standard bagger style Goldwing, so just with the side cases, well, that now comes in matte ballistic black with some stealthy looking graphics. Pretty nice looking, if a little bit subdued, but it's the full luggage Goldwing Tour that gets something a bit more vibrant. Here in the UK, the manual gearbox version gets a digital silver metallic, but the ones with the DCT gearbox that effectively allows you to run it as an automatic, if you're not familiar, well, those come in Bordeaux metallic red, which I think is a reference back to previous generations, or this one, the Eternal Gold and Mahogany Brown Metallic with the almost wood effect station wagon style panels. Now, I reckon this one is going to be a bit of a love-hate thing. It's a bit Marmite probably. But personally, I'm not sure if I'd buy one, but I still like it, and I love that Honda have been really bold to mark this occasion and gone for something that's a real direct tribute to a previous Goldwing and something completely different to the paint that was already available for the current generation. What do you think of it though? Hot or not? Let me know down in the comments. On top of the new paint jobs though, you also get some 50th anniversary badging on the center console there, which I think is a nice touch. You've got something similar on the keyless fob as well. And then there's also the option to get a limited edition desktop scale model with the first gen on one side and the latest gen on the other side, and a little mirror down the middle so it makes the bike look complete from whatever angle you're looking at it from. But what about these technical changes? Well, one of them is that the 1800cc flat 6 engine, which is an absolute peach, has been cleaned up with new sensors for the latest Euro 5 Plus emissions regulations, and there's also some tweaks to the infotainment system too. So it's got CarPlay and Android Auto, but previously you had to plug it in with a cable, whereas now you can connect over Wi-Fi. Probably not a big deal if you don't regularly use some of these features, but for me, even in my van, to be honest, it's far preferable to have wireless CarPlay because it just automatically connects every time you jump in or jump on the bike, as the case may be here. Much easier to use in my experience, but also the Bluetooth headset connectivity system has been improved with a simpler way to connect, and the built-in speakers have been upgraded with a bit more speaker pressure, so they should be a little clearer at higher volumes when you're traveling at higher speeds, so you can barrel down the motorway with the speakers turned up to 11 and hopefully still get nice audio clarity. So some nice little tweaks across the bike, if not a complete revelation, and that kind of had me wondering actually, do you think they've done enough to mark the 50th anniversary of such a well-known bike? I think from the comments on some of our videos with new bike rumors and stuff like that, that plenty of you suspected that something would be introduced to mark this occasion, and so I'd love to know down in the comments below whether this was what you had in mind, or were you looking for some proper performance and comfort enhancements, or maybe some new features. Recently, for example, we looked at a patent that had been filed for a LiDAR-enabled cruise control system that was specifically shown, I think, on the Goldwing, but it looks like anything brand new like that could still be a year or two away at least. I actually put these pictures up of this new bike when they first came out earlier this week, and the feedback, I've got to say, was a little bit mixed. Arthur K said the retro paint job was a bold move by Honda. I like it. In fact, I love it. And Niels Martin said, oh, I like it. Very 70s indeed. Lovelessissimo says the Goldwagon, yes. But on the other hand, Potato Man says brilliant bike, but needs a serious update and a price reduction. And the Tanicro says, I love the wing, but this color combo is meh. Then over on Instagram, Anonymous Biker says very disappointing, no upgrades of any consequence on a 50th anniversary. Next. But yeah, as always, let me know what you think in the comments. Now, scripting that with the improved Bluetooth connectivity reminded me actually, is there anything more romantic than a pair of Bluetooth headsets? Cardo seemed to agree as well, with a heck of a deal for Valentine's Day, with up to 22% off most of their headsets, a full list of which I'll put on the screen now. It runs from the 7th of Feb to the 22nd, so it straddles Valentine's. And so there's plenty of time to get yours in, and there's a link down in the description below where you can find out more. Now, I won't give you the hard sell on Cardo, but you should be aware they're channel sponsors. But even so, we still believe they're the best headsets in the business. And so if you're thinking about picking one up soon, then now's probably a good time, especially if you can kind of stealthily justify buying 2 of them as a Valentine's gift. But now for some new tech, and I'd love it if you could tag a mate in the comments who you think might need this next feature, because we probably all know at least one rider who struggles a bit with U-turns, and it's a patent from Honda with some diagrams outlining what looks to be an anti-fall system. In fact, there's actually some accompanying text in the patent that describes how it works, and it reads as follows. An aspect of the present invention is a saddle ride vehicle including a steering actuator that applies torque in a steering direction to a suspension apparatus supporting a steering wheel. First detection means that... I'm not going to read that. I'll summarize. In fact, I actually put that through ChatGPT to summarize it and make it a bit more obvious as to what it actually does. And from my understanding, it's that it basically measures the speed of tilt in order to get an idea of how well the bike's balanced. And then using an electronic actuator on the fork, it can course correct automatically if it thinks you're about to go over. Now, on the one hand, it sounds maybe a bit much, like it might be too intrusive. But on the other, you could kind of see it as the steering equivalent of like ABS for braking or traction control for rear wheel grip, both of which I think is fair to say are now a widely accepted part of motorcycling. It might sound a little bit far-fetched that Honda could actually make a bike that won't necessarily go over, but then you remember this self-balancing prototype from a couple of years back, and yeah, I think probably robots are actually a bit better at balancing than humans now. Still, if you're a little bit intimidated by doing a tight U-turn on a big Goldwing or something like that, then this might just be the ticket. And so yeah, let me know, would you ride a bike with this feature or not? Now next up, we've got a snazzy new version of Royal Enfield Shotgun 650 Sporty Cruiser on the way, courtesy of a new collaboration with motorcycle clothing brand Icon Motorsports. Just 100 of these will be made, I believe, with 25 going into Europe, 5 of which will go into the UK, and I've been told that that's the largest allocation of any country. Mechanically, it's very much the same, so it's the 650 parallel twin that makes 47 horsepower, the same easygoing chassis but with a fairly neutral riding position. But of course, this one gets a custom racing-inspired paint job, gold wheels, and a red saddle for what I think is a pretty fantastic look overall. To be fair, the standard paint on the Shotgun was already quite lively and looked pretty good, I thought, but you can see how this one will stand out from the crowd a bit, and I do like that sort of racing vibe that it's got. As for the price, well, keep in mind a Ducati special edition can be up around the sort of £60,000 mark. But with this one, Enfield have stayed true to their fundamental values, with it starting from £7,399. I think that's pretty good. It's just 500 quid more than the standard Shotgun 650. Plus, you get an Icon designed Slabtown Intercept Royal Enfield jacket thrown in, which probably accounts for a good share of the price difference. Although I will say I'm probably not that sold on the matching jacket. Certainly not as nice looking as the bike, but maybe nice to have hung up next to it in the garage. But yeah, pre-orders are, or pre-registration should I say, is open already, with the actual exclusive drop going live on the 12th of Feb, I believe, at 3 PM GMT. So if you like the look of this thing, then you probably better get yourself signed up. Let me know what you make of it in the comments, and also whether you'd take 10 of these or one of the Ducati Street Fighter Lamborghini edition for the same price. But look, if 47 horsepower sounds a bit pedestrian for your taste, then fear not, because something a lot more pokey could be just around the corner. Small volume British manufacturer Langan just unveiled these renders for what appears to be a turbocharged version of their already pretty outrageous light-speed power cruiser. That bike's 1190cc V-twin makes a healthy 185 horsepower, and yet it tips the scales at just 185 kilograms dry. We saw it last year at the London Motorcycle Show, and I've got to say it's very striking in the flesh. But obviously not satisfied with that 1,000 horsepower per ton ratio, well, Langen have slapped a turbo in it. I mean, there's probably more to it than that, but that's the general idea. And it's set to almost double peak power in an attempt to become the world's fastest production motorcycle. Now, they're saying final specs are still TBC, but their initial dyno tests have resulted in 250 horsepower peak when using a slightly more tame and manageable road mode. Full power, though, they believe will be capable of just over 300 horses, which is just a phenomenal figure that you rarely ever hear of when it comes to the two-wheeled world. Now, at the moment, I believe the supercharged Kawasaki H2R is the fastest production motorcycle with a litre inline-4 that makes 326 PS or 322 horsepower with the effects of ram air. So clearly, got their work cut out, especially considering the H2R is also pretty light at 216 kilograms wet, so fully fueled up and full of liquids. Now, the plan for this one is to get it ready for the back end of 2025, or at least the pre-production versions, and they're planning to run them at Santa Pod Raceway here in the UK to get out there and set some records, and I presume production versions will be available soonish after that. No word on price though, but the standard light speed without the turbo comes in at £44,400, so I wouldn't expect this one to come in much less, if at all less, than the 50 grand of the Kawasaki. Super cool or absolute overkill? Let me know what you think down in the comments, and we'll be heading to this year's London Motorcycle Show next week, so maybe we'll be able to have a chat with them about it there. And do hit subscribe if you want to see the video from that show, and also if you're heading down there and you see us on the Friday, do stop us and say hello. I'll also leave last week's episode on the screen now so you can give it a click and give it a watch. We looked at the new KTM 390 Adventure lineup, as well as some of the other best small to mid capacity adventure bikes on the market for 2025. Do hit subscribe for more of the latest motorcycle news like this right here on MOTOBOB. A massive thanks for watching today, as always, and we'll see you in the next video.